So in the last video, we talked about what unemployment is and argued that it's really important to understand unemployment rates and how it impacts our overall economy and well-being. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to break down unemployment a little further. Unemployment is a person not currently employed who is either actively seeking a job or waiting to begin or return to a job, but it actually can be broken down even further than that. We have three types of unemployment that economists like to talk about. So the three types that we're going to talk about are frictional, structural, and cyclical unemployment. First up is frictional unemployment. This is often stated as being caused by imperfect information. This occurs because employers are not aware of all available workers and their qualifications, and available workers are not fully aware of all the jobs being offered by employers. Right? The basic idea behind frictional unemployment is that when you decide that you want to go off and you want a job now, it's not like instantly just snap, you've got a job. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I found this perfect place and I already have a job and I'm already starting to work. There's some time lag that happens in between when you decide you're seeking a job and when you actually land that job. Why? Because there's a cost to figuring out what jobs are out there for me, what jobs work, what jobs am I qualified for, and then also on the flip side of that, the people who are going to hire you are trying to find you as well. They're trying to find somebody who actually fits the needs that they have for their company, right? And so there's this time that takes place as we sort through this imperfect information. The fact that we don't know who is out there in terms of potential employees, and we don't know what firms are out there in terms of potential employers that are looking for somebody where the skill sets match and everything lines up and you're willing to take that job. So frictional unemployment is kind of the catch-all here of our type of unemployment where, hey, it's because, we just don't have these things perfectly figured out. It doesn't just line up right away where as soon as you're seeking a job, you can just get it. You have to find that job and they have to find you. And so this is kind of a big area of unemployment. Next up is structural unemployment. This reflects an imperfect match of employee skills to the skill requirements of the available jobs, right? So this reflects the structural and demographic characteristics of the labor market. So this is not a situation like frictional unemployment where you just don't know what jobs are out there. It's that your skill set doesn't match the skill set that the companies out there need. So imagine an economy switches away from using typewriters and you're a typewriter repairman. Well, the economy is moving away from typewriters and towards computers, and now the economy needs computer programmers, not people that have the skill set to repair small machines like a typewriter. And so if you're a typewriter repairman, man, a bunch of you are now unemployed. And there are all these jobs out there for computer programmers, but no one's looking for somebody who is a typewriter repairman. They're looking for a computer programmer, but you can't do that job. You don't know how to be a computer programmer, right? So your skill set doesn't match the skill set that is needed from the macroeconomy, from the overall society's, jobs that are available. And so the transition can be tough if the skills don't match. This is the idea of structural unemployment, right? The structure of the economy does not match the structure of the skill sets that are available from the individuals trying to find jobs within that economy. The third and final type here is cyclical unemployment. This reflects the business cycle conditions. When there's a general downturn in business activity, there could be cyclical unemployment. So this is the unemployment that is caused just because of the business cycle, the ups and downs of the business cycle, right? And so if it is not frictional unemployment and not structural unemployment, we're going to define it as cyclical unemployment. It is the unemployment due just to the ebbs and flows of the economy. If the economy all of a sudden starts not doing so well, your skill set might match up with somebody who wants to hire you, And you might know that that job exists, and they might know that you as a potential employee exist, but they still don't want to hire you because right now they're going through a rough patch and they don't have the funds to pay for you to work for them and to, start a new career, right? So this is cyclical unemployment, the unemployment caused by the business cycle. Well, we can say, so what? So why do these three types matter? Why do we have to break these things down, right? Well, there's many reasons for studying this if you're studying labor economics, but for us, in our discussion of macroeconomics, it helps us better appreciate an important concept that will be a major part of the rest of this class, the idea of these fluctuations in unemployment. In macroeconomics, we have these standards of how much production our macroeconomy should have. And it's tightly linked to the idea of, are we completely employing the resources, in particular labor, that we could be employing? And so we're going to turn to a couple of concepts to really serve as this focal point for our discussion and our language within macroeconomics. And it's tied to this idea of unemployment, and it's tied to our breakdown of the three types of unemployment. So the concept that we're going to bring in here is called full employment. We can also talk about the natural rate of unemployment. Full employment, what is it? The level of employment that results when the rate of unemployment is normal, considering both frictional and structural factors. We are fully employed if there is neither cyclical unemployment or extra cyclical employment. If the business cycle just isn't doing anything to our economy right now, and we're at kind of our normal level, then we will be at full employment. Now that does not mean 100% employment. What that means is that we have the normal level of frictional and structural unemployment associated with a well-functioning economy. Full employment is really going to be our benchmark. We are employing all of our resources that we could sustain into the long run within our economy if we are at full employment. If we consider the natural rate of unemployment and the full employment level, this graph here can kind of show us how these two are related, right? Going up, our full employment level might be that, hey, 90% of our economy is employed, given the reality of the natural rate of unemployment. Then our natural rate of unemployment would be the flip side of this, kind of the last 10% here. That 10% is, say, from the structural and frictional unemployment levels that we have within an economy. Now, 10% would be pretty high for a natural rate of unemployment, but this just gives us kind of an understanding of how these two concepts relate to one another, right? They're kind of flip sides to one another. We are not aiming for 100% employment, but we are aiming for full employment. We can talk about this with the natural rate of unemployment as well. This is the level of unemployment that reflects kind of job shopping in an economy and this imperfect information and dynamic structural change, right? So again, this is just the flip side here. We're saying how much unemployment do we have if the unemployment is only caused by frictional and structural unemployment. So full employment and the natural rate of unemployment, they're closely related concepts to one another. The natural rate of unemployment is neither a temporary high, nor a temporary low. It's a rate that's achievable and sustainable when it comes to our unemployment rate. The level of unemployment accompanying an economy's maximum sustainable level of output. That's the natural rate. There's a natural rate of unemployment which is caused by the dynamic change, structural unemployment, our institutions, and the characteristics of our labor force, the frictional unemployment as well, right? So it's consistent with our types of structural and frictional unemployment. So full employment is not a term used to describe a situation where everyone has a job, but this is going to be our benchmark. It is kind of the flip side of the natural rate of unemployment. This is our benchmark. This is what we're comparing everything to. We're saying when we have full employment, this is what we can sustain Given the reality of frictional and structural unemployment, right, this is the level we can sustain, and we are maximally employing our resources within the labor market towards production for our economy. And so this is the level of production that our economy can have. Full employment is used to represent the level of employment that occurs with the normal operation of the labor market, not considering downturns in the economy when it comes to just the business cycle or cyclical unemployment. Full employment is our benchmark then. This is the benchmark. It is the level that we are using to kind of contrast everything with when it comes to all of our basic approach to macroeconomics. It is our maximum sustainable level of employment, which means it is our maximum sustainable level of real output, how much our economy is actually producing. It's the highest amount we can produce over time and have it be sustainable. It represents our long-run aggregate supply benchmark. It's how much our overall economy can actually supply. This is the benchmark from which we will compare everything to. Can we temporarily go beyond full employment? Well, yeah, actually we can, but this level cannot be sustained. It can be reached, but not sustained. We'd be willing to supply more than our full employment aggregate supply benchmark just temporarily. Think of yourself if you're studying. Can you study at your absolute max capacity for an entire semester or an entire year? Probably not. There is some level that you can study at every single day and sustain it for an entire semester or an entire year. But could you ever kind of go beyond that level? Sure, but only for like a weekend, right? You could cram for an exam and go beyond some sustainable level. So you can go beyond kind of your long run sustainable amount. You can go beyond, in this case, full employment, but only temporarily. It's not something that can actually be sustained. Here we can see the natural rate of unemployment and the actual rate of unemployment. And what we will see is that the actual rate of unemployment is kind of influenced by the overall market conditions. It follows the ups and downs of a business cycle. If the economy is doing really, really well, then our unemployment, our actual rate of unemployment, will be lower than the natural rate of unemployment, kind of that red line that cuts through there. But we will have recessions or downturns when our unemployment actually spikes higher. And so we can see these kind of spikes in the blue line, the actual rate of unemployment. And those spikes correspond to little recessions or downturns in the economy. When we have these high levels of unemployment, we end up with very low levels of production. But can the natural rate of unemployment change? It seems as though it's kind of flowing up and down a little bit when we looked at our graph. How does the natural rate change? The natural rate of unemployment can change. Certain rules or laws make the natural rate of unemployment lower. Both demographic factors and public policy influence the natural rate of unemployment. So for example, when it comes to demographic factors, young workers could increase as a share of the labor force, which would make the situation where we have a different natural rate of unemployment. Right? Young workers are going to be much more likely to be kind of like willing to take any job that they get. And so we might see that the natural rate goes down as young workers increase the share of the labor force. Or you can think of an example of public policy that influences the natural rate of unemployment. What if we have a higher level of unemployment benefits? Right? What do you think that would do to the unemployment level? Right? People, if they have higher unemployment benefits, they're going to be more willing to stay unemployed during a time period because, hey, it's, kind of comfy and cozy if you have tons and tons of benefits from being unemployed. And so when that's the case, you're going to sit there and you're going to look for just the perfect job. You're going to look for just that, absolutely perfect job in order to make you willing to go back to work because it's not so bad being unemployed. And so the natural rate of unemployment can be influenced by these kind of demographic or public policy oriented factors. And as we said, these ideas of unemployment are our benchmarks, and they're largely linked to our understanding of the economy's overall output. And that's why they're kind of serve as our benchmark. We are saying if we're at full employment, we have fully employed our resources, and in particular, our labor force, right, to produce for our economy. And so what we want to do is we want to link this to these concepts called actual and potential GDP. For right now, we're going to see GDP as just kind of how much production does our economy have? And our actual GDP is, well, how much production are we actually doing? Our potential GDP is, well, potentially how much GDP, how much production could we have? Our potential output is the economy's maximum sustainable output level, consistent with the economy's resource base, given its institutional arrangements. So what does that mean? Our potential output is the amount of output that we would have if we only had structural and frictional unemployment. So our actual output can be lower or higher than our potential output for a brief period of time. So we want to see these as kind of our benchmark here. Our potential output, our potential GDP is lined with our full employment level. And these are the benchmarks by which we're going to compare how is the economy doing? Is it doing really well? Is it doing really poorly? Is it doing just right? Is it overheating? What's happening to our economy? In order to make a statement about that, we have to have the benchmark. This is our benchmark, the idea of full employment or our potential output. All right, so this video has wrapped up why macroeconomics is so important. Unemployment is a huge issue, and we want to think seriously about the effects of macroeconomies going up and going down, and how that influences the lives of everyday people. And so we talked about the idea of unemployment being this great signal to this. And then we defined what unemployment is, labor force participation rates, and we broke down unemployment to structural, frictional, and cyclical unemployment, and then talked about how that maps into our benchmarks of potential output and full employment. To see what's next, click on the video here and keep moving forward in macroeconomics.